while this boots up, what are the resources in our community in terms of law enforcement?
I'm sorry.
What are the resources in our community in terms of law enforcement? In other words,
Yeah.
the sheriff's office and the police department, what resources do we have?
So right now, local law enforcement is broken up into what we call a street task force. There's a member of the sheriff's department on that, a member of the FBI, and then we have right now one Spokane police officer assigned to this. Just kind of give you guys an idea too. So this police officer, Detective Harlan, actually used to be with the Vice unit. So in order to make this anti-trafficking kind of street task force happen, we had to shut down Vice. So there is a 3-member unit that's comprised of those agents, and then we have special agents Shannon and Shane, and then Trinity, who's not here. And so that's a Homeland Security team that's been, I think they've been active in the area for about 3 years. And yeah, as far as law enforcement assigned to this issue, that would be the entirety of it.
Dr. Dines, for teens who prefer digital communication to verbal, with Snapchat being the main method, Snapchat eludes the regular monitoring methods. What suggestions do you have for parents of teens who desire to use Snapchat?
So, sorry, say that again.
So the question is that teens prefer to use Snapchat, but Snapchat eludes many of the monitors. So do you have any suggestions?
How to monitor Snapchat?
Yes.
Well, the problem with that is that every time you're watching out what they're putting into Snapchat is changing. For example, I was telling you about the emojis. Then recently, just before I came here, I was looking up to see where else porn is hidden behind, and now they're saying it's hidden behind Russian quotes. So it's very hard to keep up with that. I would say, I mean, if the kid wants Snapchat, what can you say? Because this is how they communicate. And again, this is why it is a public health problem and not an individual. You cannot control the individual child in a way that makes it livable for that child. What you can do is engage with them, have conversations with them. As I say, go on Culture Reframed, find all the ways that you have these conversations. But I don't want to come here with false promises. This is why it's public health. No individual person can deal with this. If we were talking about a conference about polluted air, none of you would say, how do I stop my kid from breathing polluted air? I couldn't tell you where to move to. And it would be like saying, you know what? I'm living on this toxic dump, but we're eating really good organic food and we're still getting sick, and I don't understand why. Well, that's the reality. It is a mass problem that needs a systemic answer to it.
Aaron, if not financially, how else can we help the Jonah Project in terms of volunteering?
Yeah, there's 2 big ways, I guess, that I would ask today. One would be we need advocates for safe houses. So we are building more host housing and safe housing as we go, and that requires some training. Bindi and her team are really good at this, though, and they're really good at training. So we need people that are willing to dive in, hands-on, and love a human being back to life. That's one big way, and the other way would be civic push. I talk to students about this all the time. They don't realize how powerful their voices, young people a lot of times don't realize how powerful their voices are, but we have got to push for an open conversation on this. Right now, if you were one of the Johns that was busted in a sting operation, you have your car impounded and you're fined $500. That money is then split with another agency and what have you, but the victims don't see any of the resources from that. And quite frankly, many times, if they're over 18 and they're dealing with prostitution charges, they're penalized the same way that John is. And so a lot of this is pushing for an open forum civic conversation. I believe that even those of you that may have learned about trafficking today for the first time would have just as much to say and offer to the conversation as somebody else. But you're not allowed into the conversation because we're making decisions about how to deal with this in small back rooms. It needs to be open government forum, and you guys can push for that.
Dr. Dines, this is a medical student. As a medical student, how do we respectfully tell our professors they're wrong when they say porn is good in moderation? And the follow-up question is, how do you reconcile with the term feminist when it seems like so many mainstream feminists are pro-porn. So
Okay.
what do you
So-
tell your professor? And
You tell them you're wrong, right? Those are the exact words you say. And you can't go alone. You have to go in a group. You have to find a peer group. And one thing, because if they're professors and of course they respond to a peer reviewed, is that you go with peer reviewed articles. Now, a great place to find them, if you go on the Culture Reframed website, we have a peer reviewed library where you can just pull off all the articles. That comes in different categories. We've got a medical category as well. So I would go with peer-reviewed articles, ask them to read them. It's going to be a very difficult position for a professor to say, no, I refuse to read peer-reviewed articles, okay? And then tell them that you would like them to integrate this into the syllabus. That's crucial. Secondly, right, so I taught a 14-week course on feminism and the divisions around it. So this is going to be like a 14-second answer. The truth is, the feminists who support this are what are called third-wave feminists. They tend to believe that in an individualistic feminism, where if you are empowered as a woman and it works for you, which it doesn't work for them anyway, but even if it does, that's good. So I joined what was called the second wave radical feminist movement. And we never, ever used the word empowerment. We used the word liberation. Because what we said is that even if I'm okay, even if everything in my life is fine, if her life over there is not okay, I will walk up and down and across mountains to make that life okay for you. That is what sisterhood is. That is the feminism I joined. That is the feminism I stay with, is the belief that I am doing fine. I am white, educated, upper middle class, married to a good man. My life's fine. But you know what? If there's just one woman whose life is not fine, then you keep fighting the feminist fight. That is the core of my feminism, and it's called radical feminism.
Amen. Amen.
we'll take the last question for Dr. Dines from a priest. Is there an increase in consumption of porn by women? And how can one explain this, and what are the consequences societally?
All right, so this is a very under-researched field, women and porn. What we know that there is an increase in women going to porn sites. What we don't know is how long they're on the porn sites, what porn sites they're going to, and what they're doing on the porn sites. Now, anecdotally, I can tell you from speaking to thousands of young women, they tend to split into two groups. The first group are going to porn sites to masturbate, usually have a history of sexual abuse, have got trauma, and they've told me that they cannot have an orgasm without watching another woman brutalized, which, if you understand trauma, makes sense. The second group, which is a much larger group, are women. My students used to tell me all the time is we go to porn sites to see what the guys are watching so that we can do this to them next time. So that's what we know, but it is extremely under-researched. We really don't know anything like we know about what men do on porn sites, the length they stay, what they get out of it. So hopefully there's going to be a whole spate of research coming out so we can answer that in a better way. I just hope that we do not end up in a situation in 5 years where the same number of women as men are on porn sites and they're using them. Because you know what? If women cave into this, we're finished. We may as well pack up and go home, because women have been the ones usually to say enough, no. So let's just hope women do not cave into this porn culture.
Great. Thank you very much. That concludes this session.